Good Tuesday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for October the 31st. Today we are reading together in Second Chronicles chapter 8. Second Chronicles chapter 8. Let me get the text up on the screen for us, and we'll read along together here. We noticed over the past couple readings, we read through chapters 6 and 7, 6 being the dedication of the temple and Solomon's great prayer to Yahweh. I'm asking for Yahweh to take full advantage of the temple, and that being his dwelling place among his people, that whenever someone sinned, or whenever there was pestilence, whenever there was famine, whenever there was war, any situation in which someone found themselves lacking, they could find fulfillment in praying to Yahweh and facing toward the temple and offering up themselves and their struggles and their worries and difficulties to God. And then in chapter 7, Yahweh turns around and responds. He says, yes, I will do that. But then there is the reminder of the covenant blessings, the covenant curses, that if you and the people keep my commands, then you'll be blessed. But if you don't, you will be cursed. Well, we're just continuing on now, working our way through the history of Israel under Solomon. And here in chapter 8, we're going to look at, as the subheading says here in my particular Bible that we're reading from, Solomon's later building projects. We're going to note that after the 20 years of building the temple and his own palace, there's some other things that Solomon is going to address among the land. And then we're also going to see him focusing in on worship, but we're also going to see him accruing quite a bit of wealth as well. So let's read here, beginning in Second Chronicles chapter 8, verse number 1. Second Chronicles chapter 8, verse number 1, at the end of 20 years, during which Solomon had built Yahweh's temple and his own palace, Solomon had rebuilt the cities Hiram gave him and settled Israelites there. Solomon went to Hamath Azobah and seized it. He built Tadmor in the wilderness, along with all the storage cities that he built in Hamath. He built up Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon, fortified cities with walls, gates, and bars. Baalath, all the storage cities that belonged to Solomon, all the chariot cities, the cavalry cities, and everything Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, Lebanon, or anywhere else in the land of his dominion. As for all the people who remained of the Hethites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, who were not from Israel, their descendants who remained in the land after them, those the Israelites had not completely destroyed, Solomon imposed on them forced labor. It is this way today. But Solomon did not consign the Israelites to be slaves for his work. They were soldiers, commanders of his captains, and commanders of his chariots and his cavalry. These were Solomon's deputies, 250 who supervised the people. Solomon brought the daughter of Pharaoh from the city of David to the house he had built for her, for he said, my wife must not live in the house of King David of Israel, because the places the ark of Yahweh has come into are holy. At that time, Solomon offered burnt offerings to Yahweh on Yahweh's altar he had made in front of the portico. He followed the daily requirement for offerings according to the commandment of Moses for the Sabbaths, new moons, and the 3 annual appointed festivals, the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of shelters. According to the ordinances of his father David, he appointed the divisions of the priests over their service, of the Levites over their responsibilities to offer praise and to minister before the priests following the daily requirement, and of the gatekeepers by their divisions with respect to each temple gate. For this has been the command of David, the man of God. They did not turn aside from the king's command regarding the priests and the Levites concerning any matter or concerning the treasuries. All of Solomon's work was carried out from the day the foundation was laid for Yahweh's temple until it was finished. So Yahweh's temple was completed. At that time, Solomon went to Ezion Geber and to Eloth on the seashore in the land of Edom. So Hiram sent ships to him by his servants, along with crews of experienced seamen. They went with Solomon's servants to Ophir, took from there 17 tons of gold, and delivered it to King Solomon. And that is Second Chronicles chapter 8. 2 Chronicles chapter 8. Again, it took about 7 years to build the temple, about 13 years for Solomon to build his own palace. I'll let you do with that what you would like. That it took almost double the time for him to build his own palace than it did for God's house. But nevertheless, we also read that he had to rebuild some of the cities that Hiram had given him, and he ended up settling Israelites there. Well, what this is talking about is whenever Solomon was making his business arrangements with Hiram in order to gain supplies, in order to build a temple and the palace, part of what he said is, I'll give you some cities. Well, we might recall from our read through First Kings chapter 9, I believe it is, that the cities that Solomon gave Hiram weren't exactly worth anything. So Hiram was kind of offended by that and ends up just giving them back to Solomon. So Solomon ends up rebuilding them and putting Israelites there. We also read that he made sure to build these very strategically important cities for trade. These cities that were put Tadmor, it was along with the stored cities that he built in Hamath. These were all in very good locations in order for him to easily access them for trading. So he is building up the economy of Israel as well, making sure that they have very good financial footing. As well, he's going to build up the strategic positions for any sort of military operation that might need to take place. He takes care of Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon. These are fortified cities with walls, gates, and bars. These would have been cities that would have been used to deter any sort of invasion or any sort of incursion that somebody might bring against Israel. So he is rebuilding some rundown cities and putting Israelites there throughout the land. He is building cities for strategic trading positions. He's also building up these cities in which he can help to repel any sort of attacks that might come against Israel. So Solomon, again, is taking that wisdom that was given to him by Yahweh, and he is using it very well, again, just to strengthen Israel on the whole, to make sure that they are very strong in many different respects. We are told about his labor force that it was not made up of Israelites. The slaves that were used for various things of labor were not Israelites, but instead they were the Hethites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, all those who were not of Israel, those who had not been completely run out during the conquest. He uses them as forced labor. And then he used his own Israelites in more important positions as soldiers or commanders of captains and commanders of his chariots and his cavalry. All these would be people he can most certainly trust as fellow Israelites. Then we're also told about Solomon bringing his wife, the daughter of Pharaoh, from the city of David to the house that he had built for her. And he says that my wife must not live in the house of King David of Israel, because the places the ark of Yahweh has come into are most holy. He seems to have some partial consideration for the laws and things of that nature here in this moment, but he doesn't care entirely about these important things, because otherwise he wouldn't have married this pagan woman, which again, unfortunately, we know how this all plays out, who eventually turned his heart away from Yahweh. But he does have great concern for worship, which is why it tells us that he followed the daily requirement for offerings according to the commandment of Moses, for Sabbaths, new moons, the 3 annual appointed festivals, festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, the festival of shelters. Again, there are some ways in which Solomon was very committed. He was very focused, and some ways in which he was not. And again, you would think that the ways in which he is very focused, they're going to excel well, and the ways in which he's not, there's going to be difficulties. Again, this all plays out as we're going to continue reading about Solomon. And then we also see finally in the last little paragraph the mutually beneficial relationship that he has with Hiram that continues on, where Hiram sends him ships, and Solomon has these port cities of Ezion Geber and Eloth, and they're going to work together in order to accrue a tremendous 17 tons of gold that ends up being delivered to King Solomon. Many of my notes here and many others have noticed that, Solomon is building up a lot for himself, and it doesn't seem as if this wealth is being spread among the nation as a whole, but just Solomon's kind of accumulating all this for himself. And again, we're thinking about What's said in Deuteronomy chapter 17, a lot of the things that were warned against for the kings, don't accrue chariots and horses, don't accrue wives, don't accrue just ridiculous wealth. Well, Solomon, unfortunately, is not exactly heeding that advice, not heeding that instruction, I should say. Instruction is what it is. He's not heeding that instruction. And again, that's going to come back to bite him a little bit down the road. But right here, right now, we're just, again, building up and stacking on top of various aspects of history, these various points, which are, again, this is for the post-exilic people of Israel, those who have come back from exile, and they're really at this point just gaining the understanding that when the rulers of past years, when they were faithful to Yahweh, good things ended up happening. But even for them, as they're noting some of these things, they're thinking, oh, this isn't necessarily the best thing. And they're going to see as they continue on through this history. Again, this is history being restated, yes, but there's a theological purpose behind it. And I think really just gets down to covenant loyalty and covenant faithfulness for the people, that you need to be loyal to the covenants. Because when you're not, well, you see what happened in our past. So it is the past being retold as motivation for the present and the future. And that's really true for us whenever it just comes to our having scripture. That what we have in scripture was written for our instruction, for our learning, so that we can gain something from that, so we can look at the mistakes of people in the past and not make those same mistakes ourselves, but could go ahead and learn from whatever already happened to them. As we're reading through scripture, that's one thing that we benefit from, is just to learn what good decision making looks like, and to learn what bad decision making looks like. And we see that from a lot of characters. Most characters, it's not just one or the other. It's not they all make, or they make all good decisions, they make all bad decisions. Sometimes and often it is a mixed bag. Think about King David. Think here about Solomon. Some good things, yes, but some not so great things as well. So we learn from these so we can be somebody who, certainly is striving always to make good decisions. So we benefit from those good decisions before our God. If you have any questions about this text here in 1 Chronicles chapter 8, please feel free to leave that in the comments section below. And I appreciate you taking some time to read along with me today on this Tuesday. If you're participating in some trick-or-treating tonight, I hope that you have a great time. And I hope that you'll take some time tomorrow as we read together from 1 Chronicles chapter 9. 1 Chronicles chapter 9, where we'll read about the Solomon's visit from the Queen of Sheba, and we're actually going to see the end of Solomon already here. Solomon just gets a few chapters, not very much at all, again, because we're making our way towards the end of the Chronicles, building upon this theological purpose of recognizing the need for covenant loyalty. Again, thanks for tuning in today. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Take care, and God bless.